I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
Hello. Hello.
Oh.
Hello.
Yes, hello, I'm here. Good evening, dear listeners. As you hear, we have our show today in English because our special guest to know as Kevin Annett. Heine will ask the questions for today because of his well-known knowledge of this topic. Also, in this show, we have Tilasmi Frigge and Casper Rutten from the Dutch members of the People's Tribunal of the Lowlands. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. It's good to be with all of you.
Yes, okay. Glad to hear you, and nice that you are online this time, so we can start this interview for tonight. Heine, good evening.
Good evening, Jeroen. Good evening, Kevin. It's a great privilege to talk with you on the radio, the internet radio, the Dutch internet radio. We hope you're doing fine amidst all turbulence that you're living in.
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Okay, great. The last 24 hours, I've been watching a few YouTube films, interviews with Alfred Lebremont Weber and your famous documentary, Hidden from History. And it was all very impressive. And for me, I've got the feeling that you are aiming at the hardcore of the world problems. I cannot imagine any other action that hits the hardcore more precisely than you are doing and have been doing for the last few years. So that's why it's a great privilege to have you on the radio, Kevin.
Thank you.
Casper Rutten and Tilasmi Frigge are also standby in this program. They are setting up the Dutch People's Tribunal at this moment. Have you had any contact with them so far about this? Do you know their developments?
I don't know the recent developments, but I'm good friends with Casper and Tos and others. I've visited them a number of times, and I look forward to working with them again when I'm over in Europe finally in the new year.
Okay, so that means that you're planning now to visit Europe in the new year, in the beginning of the new year? Is that correct?
I don't have an exact date yet, and it has to do with developments that have happened over here in North America that require that I stay here. But our plan is definitely by the spring, at the latest, to be back in Europe for some time, for a number of weeks.
Okay, that's clear enough. That would be wonderful if you could come over here, of course. We have sent you a few questions. That's just to have something at least mutual to talk about. But those were quite general questions in general. Did you have any time to look at them by any chance?
Unfortunately, my laptop wasn't able to open the attachments, but I'd be quite willing to answer them if you just ask me. That's fine.
Okay. Before we start with that, this program from the Unseen Worlds of Finding Voices Radio, it's the program of Jeroen, who has been directing this radio program for 6 years now. This normally is normally a program of 2 hours. How's that for you? Can you be with us for 2 hours, or did you plan to stay with us 1 hour?
1 hour, please, because I have another interview after about an hour, so that would be best for me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think I could ask a few of these questions. There were 14 in total, and eight leaves of questions. So I don't know if we can ask them all. And at the end, I would like to have Casper and Tilasmi join the conversation with you. But let's give it a try. The first question I had, the Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, it's called. So, crimes of church and state. And although child trafficking and child sacrifice are definitely the most gruesome, they're definitely also not the only crimes of church and state. And the alternative research movement knows this into full depth. So the church and state and the whole fascist, satanic planetary system of governance is committing genocide on a world population, on the planet, on life upon it. And apparently, or seemingly, ITCCS, your organization, the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, is primarily focusing on this one particular crime, child abuse and child murder. And the question is ITCCS also attempting to organize tribunals and trials on all these other crimes against humanity and against nature and against the planet?
That's right. The crimes are very widespread, and for me, of course, it began investigating into the crimes against Aboriginal people. And the child trafficking and the more horrible things we've been documenting recently are one aspect of it, but it spanned all of the things defined as genocide by international law: stealing people's land, killing them, forcing them to give up all their traditions, the things that occur all over the world as genocide. But then we found that it wasn't restricted to Aboriginal people, that it started in Europe many centuries ago and had been targeted at many people, many groups. Often we found these crimes coming out of Rome. The original model for genocide was developed by the Roman Catholic Church, and in fact the Jesuits played a big role in creating these institutions where the children were housed and killed in a large number. So we find this is a much bigger issue than just what I began to discover in Canada.
Yes, because I could hear you say in one of your documentaries that eventually the heads of the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant Church, or the United Church, the Anglican Church, they are all into this. I mean, like as you said on the Nuremberg trials, the heads of state were also found guilty of the partaking in the crimes of the Nazis. So in this case, or in all these cases, the heads of the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church and the Protestant Church, or the United Church in Canada, are also can also be found guilty for this. They cannot hide behind anything. So you're aiming really at the top now, because they have been there has been a trial in Brussels already about these heads of state and the Pope himself.
We've actually convened two different trials. The first having to do with genocide in Canada, the conviction of Joseph Ratzinger, Pope Benedict. That the conviction of him occurred 2 weeks in the same 2-week period when he resigned. In February 2013, we brought out all of the evidence that he had signed letters ordering the crimes against these children to be covered up. And we had copies of those letters in the court evidence. Not only he resigned, but so did another man mentioned in our indictment, Tarcisio Bertoni, the Secretary of State. So actually there have been now 4 top Vatican officials resigned after being mentioned in our lawsuits. Not only Ratzinger and Bertoni, but the head of the Jesuits, Adolfo Pichon, and the head of the Catholic Church in Ireland, Sean Brady, the cardinal there. They all stepped down after they've been named as being involved in this child trafficking, which involves the Pope, Pope Francis as well, Jorge Bergoglio. As a matter of fact, we have recent evidence about from a woman in Holland, Anne-Marie van Bellenberg, who describes the present Pope's relationship with the Dutch royal family and Queen Maxima, whose father, of course, was in the Argentine government and dictatorship, under the Videla dictatorship. And they have, Anne-Marie claims that she bribed the present Pope to have her name changed legally so she could marry King Willem-Alexander in Holland. So there is strong ties between these royal elites and the Vatican and the child-killing networks.
Well, in former programs, the names of Prince Bernhard and the name of the brother of the present king, William Alexander, have been named, Friso, but this is a new name now within the royal Dutch family that has been named Queen Maxima. So that's new. That's news to us as well now.
This was from an interview I did with Anne-Marie just this last week, and we're going to be posting her interview with her permission. She's already given her permission. That will be up soon at the itccs.org site. The Queen Maxima Zargieta is her name, and her father was Jorge Zargieta, who was the Minister of Agriculture in the Videla dictatorship in Argentina. And Maxima has confirmed that she knows that the present Pope was aware of the killings and torture going on, and in fact was part of the cover-up of those crimes of the Argentine dictatorship.
So if you have chosen the name crimes of church and state, and I think that's very appropriate, because starting from the Middle Ages, church and state, meaning the Catholic Church, later the Roman Catholic Church, and the feudal system of monarchs, who apparently have bloodlines. You know, there is a book called the 13 Satanic Bloodlines, and they seem to go back all the way back to Babylon. Anyway, the kings and queens and princes on the one hand, and the church on the other hand, seem to have ruled Europe with a satanic rulership that's going on until the present day. Although this time the banksters are involved, as we call them, the banksters, like Rothschilds, Rockefellers, the more important ones, but also the multinationals, the media, the scientific institution. It's all involved, it seems. There is everything that's institutionalized in the world seems to be part of this bigger structure that's headed eventually by the Vatican. Is that right? You see it this way?
That's right. And historically, of course, we know because the Vatican is the world's oldest corporation, set up in the 4th century in Rome. A lot of information we've discovered recently having to do with the Vatican Bank shows that their money is being channeled through the Deutsche Bank into the BRIC nations, the Brazil, Russia, India, and China. You notice in the last few weeks, in Asia, they announced the formation of a new bank, which is to rival the World Bank, the Asia Investment Development Bank. And a lot of the money going into that is from India and China, but also from the Vatican Bank. Money is being laundered through the Deutsche Bank from there. So the Vatican is definitely orienting to that new power bloc. The world is now becoming, like during the Cold War, kind of like two power blocks, the West and the East again. And the Vatican seems to be lining up with the East. And there's a faction fight going on right now in the Vatican between Bergoglio and the Germans around Ratzinger. So that's part of why they're very worried about this evidence coming out now, and they're all trying to stay out of all this publicity around the child killing and that, because it's a very sensitive time politically for them.
Sensitive because right now they are in the process of transferring all their money within the Vatican Bank and allied banks. Right now they are in the process of transferring the money through the Deutsche Bank to Asian banks and the conglomerate of the BRICS countries. So that apparently that takes a while. That's not done in an afternoon.
That's right, and you know, we have, from people we know in those countries, they said definitely the governments of China and Russia have been being much more friendly with the Vatican. They've made complimentary remarks about the Pope for the first time. The Chinese government has an official Catholic Church, which Rome recognizes, which is unusual. They don't have never done that with China before. So clearly they're oriented in that way. And that's one of the reasons the Queen of England and President Obama visited Rome over the last months. I try to keep the Vatican on, you know, in the Western Bloc, but you know, there's again that power struggle going on.
Now, from our point of view, and in a broader alternative research movement, there is a consensus about the fact that Russia is not playing ball with the New World Order, with the cabal, and they are trying to stay independent, which is noble out of their deeds, not going into provocations of the West and of the NATO, etc. And it seems that they have pushed out the oligarchs, the banksters, after Yeltsin was in power. So from the beginning of Putin, it seems that Russia is going an independent course and is striving to world stability and world peace. On the other hand, they are within the BRICS nations, and the BRICS is, of course, part of the agenda of the world cabal, moving all the capital and richness from the West to the East. The Trilateral Commission was already starting this up in the mid-70s. China, of course, is under the dominance of the Communist Party, which is also financed and invented by the West, by the cabal, by the Freemasons, and the banks, the London and New York banks. India, of course, has been dominated by the British Empire ever from the moment that they were colonized. Now, what's your perspective on Russia? Do you think their strategy of independence and a multipolar world is genuine, or do you suspect that they are just playing a game with us?
You know, I definitely think Russia is trying to go a middle course, and Putin is a very smart man. He's playing off the West and East against one another, is the way I see it. Nevertheless, he's very dependent financially on the ties that he set up with the BRIC nations. And for example, you know, he was present at the opening of this Asian Development Bank, and you know, was saying that Russia was going to help it to as much as they could. So it's hard to see. You know, it's like in any regime, there's different factions at work, but it's always a question of You have to trace the money. You've got to say who's really pulling the strings. My position generally on politicians is that they're always controlled by people you don't see. The money men. We know that's certainly the case with Rome, and that's the oldest government on earth. So I'm sure it would be the same with Russia.
Yeah, so you can say, and that's something you say too, that we are actually still living in the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire never vanished. They right. So they put on a different mask instead of worldly rule. They stepped over to religious rule, ruling the world from the top, from the priesthood. And they're still ruling the whole world. So with their secret societies, as they are the Jesuits, which are maybe the most important, the most powerful ones, then of course the Knights of Malta, who are a lot into banking. And if you're a Knight of Malta, you pledge an oath to the Pope. So our Queen William and our former Queen, our King William and our former Queen Beatrix, they were both Knights of Malta, as are almost all royalties and monarchs in Europe. So they all pledge an oath to the Pope. So the Pope is, as you say, also actually still the Roman Caesar, but now ruling the world. And we are hoping that Russia is an exemption to the rule at this moment, but nobody's really sure, as it seems.
Right, there's a saying in the Bible. It says, "Never put your faith in princes," and I like to go by that. I think ultimately governments have to play the game to some degree, And I found in the work I'm doing, for example, that there are honest people in every government, in every church, and the longer we are out publicly working on our own, not looking to politicians to help us, but doing the work ourselves, we eventually will bring those people out. And they will give us good information. That happened, some of our recent news, exposing Canadian cabinet ministers who were present at, Ninth Circle sacrificial rituals in Rome. That happened because there were people in the system who came forward with that information, because we've been doing this work so long, so publicly.
Yeah. You had your struggle already in Canada. The Canadian government and the United Church, and also the Catholic Church in Canada, have become your greatest opponents. So you had a struggle with them, and now you're taken up against the whole world, as it seems. So your struggle continues almost from a smaller scale to the biggest scale imaginable. Is that right?
That's certainly, yes, that's true, and I hope I'm not up against the whole world. But
the ruling world.
Oh no, I know what you mean. But what we found in doing the work in Canada is, because we proved so conclusively that genocide had occurred here, that caused people in other countries to come forward and contact us, because all you need is the evidence and put out there publicly, and then, regardless of how small you are, there's always a response. And so that's why I'm very glad to hear about the opening of the Dutch tribunal, because, working with Toos and Caspar and Anne-Marie and others in your country, you have so much evidence to stand on. There's so much solid evidence, but now we need it, presented in our own courts, and that's why I'm glad that this is happening now.
Okay, this is also a sign that we are about to ask Tulasmi and Caspar into the program. But first of all, two questions. It must be encouraging for you that within a government and within these formal institutions, you meet people that are just good people and who want to be good people. And although they might be frightened to help you, they're at least willing to help you within certain circumstances. Mm-hmm. And so that must be very promising and encouraging in your work.
It is, and it's for a number of years it wasn't like that at all. I was just working on my own with eyewitnesses and others, and people were scared off very easily. But now, after all of the years of doing this work, and it's all been proven, I mean, the Canadian government has admitted now that thousands of children died in these schools, yet they've never brought a single person to trial. Because of that, that has impressed a lot of people, and that's caused more people to come forward. So I think, again, it's a lesson to all of us that you have to stay persistent over years, standing on the evidence and making it as vocal and public as possible.
And then I think in Canada, also mainly because of your work, but also in the United States, the alternative research movement, as I used to call it, is quite developed and high standing from a high intellectual level. In Europe, it seems, although Great Britain with David Icke is maybe an exception to that, but in our countries, maybe France, maybe Spain, it seems that the level of knowledge about this matter is still on a initial level. It's still not really going on. Well, what's your impression about that?
When under the last part, the sound broke. Could you repeat the question?
Do you think that in Europe in general, the knowledge about this conspiracy, this worldwide conspiracy, this role of the Catholic Church and the monarchs and the crimes of church and state in general, which are widely spread in all facets of society, that the knowledge in Europe is relatively less minor than in, for instance, North America. What's your impression about that?
Actually, having traveled a lot in North America and Europe, I find that Europeans generally have a much greater awareness of history and politics. And the very fact that you can speak different languages and you have a more kind of, multinational view of the world, Americans and Canadians are very inward-looking. They don't have a strong sense of history. We're never really taught world history in schools. We have a very practical kind of education. And so I've actually found it much easier to work in Europe, where people immediately understand what you're talking about. On the other hand, in America, we find the best response in terms of people willing to actually get out and protest, because they have a long tradition of confronting the government and not respecting authority. So, there's advantages in each different area.
Okay, so I understand that there is more general knowledge in Europe about what could be going on in the world, also because there's more awareness of history, also because we live in history. Europe is full of history. On the other hand, in North America, people appear to be more willing to take action about things.
Well, also, don't forget that many of our ancestors came to North America to get away from Europe, to get away from the religious wars and, the domination of monarchs and Rome. We came to get away from that. So here in North America, people are taught, well, Europe doesn't matter, history doesn't matter, it's what we do now that matters. And that's a very American way of thinking, and even a Canadian way of thinking.
So, do you consider the Netherlands and Belgium as particular, how can I explain that, key countries in solving this issue, or are all European countries in it the same way, and are all European countries equally important in coming to action and bringing awareness about this?
Well, it's very important for everyone to be involved in this, but we find that in the Netherlands and in Belgium, there is a long history of this cabal. It's centered there. It isn't just the Bilderbergers in that. It goes back much older. And the people in the Netherlands have been taking action to try to expose this. We also find the same thing in England. There's a strong tie between the Dutch, Belgian, and the English royal families and their ties to Rome. And so, no, definitely your part of the world is a real focus of a lot of the work we're doing.
And you have intended to come to Europe, to Brussels, to Munich, to Rome, maybe even to London and to the Netherlands in October, but that was cancelled because of security reasons. Is that correct?
Yes, there had been, after our second court case that indicted the Pope and the head of the Jesuits and the head of the Church of England, all for child trafficking, the criminal body called 'Ndrangheta, which is the mafia in Europe, they claimed that to have put out assassination contracts on heads of the ITCCS, including me. And it was advised that I wait until the spring, at which point there would not only be better security, but actual media lined up to cover our work. For example, we plan to go into England with a television crew, so that if they try to arrest me again, it'll be documented. So instead of me just showing up by myself, there'll be a more organized response, and that's one of the reasons we're waiting.
One of the reasons you're waiting to get this better organized.
Yes.
Okay, that's clear. Jeroen, would you like to say something, please? And maybe we can welcome Casper and Tilasmi into the program.
Hi, no, I don't have anything to ask because you are doing it very well, and I agree with your questions. So, Tilasmi and Casper, you are welcome to come in the show and ask your questions if you like.
Because the one thing, Kevin, we had for 1 month now conversations on the radio, on Finding Voices, with Tilasmi and Casper, and also with Toos being one of your main 13 witnesses, as I've understood. 2 of your main 13 witnesses are coming from Holland, so it's Toos and Annemarie Blijnberg. And Casper, we understood that you had to, what's the English expression, to dive under, to hide. You had to hide because of the same reasons Kevin was and his crew was experiencing. Can you elaborate a little on that, maybe? Or Tilasmi, can you elaborate a little on that?
I had some problems with my microphone to switch it on. So good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Casper. It's good to talk to you again.
Yes. Well, we hide just out of precautions because well, we didn't know what we could expect by how do you call it? We summoned 27 officials, and as I said, you never know how they will react, and we didn't finish everything, so we want to take a safe place that we can work further and will not be disturbed by any.
And did that interfere with your work in any way? Could you make more progress nevertheless?
Yeah, well, it was the same. We could work there even as good as we did at our home.
Okay, so you have a website running now, the Volkstribunal. What's your experience? Has it been visited well since then?
Yes, we have made a complete new website. And as you can see, the cases we put in are all published on the site. So that's done because the jury members work from home. Yeah, we send them the information by post to keep the jury members anonymous, because that's what they asked that their names will be kept secret. Also, the jury members are insecure about the safety. So what's very important, we published all of the documents on the proof on the internet, because it's not only important that the jury members can look in these files, but it's actually important that everyone has access to these files, so everyone can convince himself himself that that's what the jury, the verdict of the jury will be right. So the verdict we expect this weekend.
So the verdict you expect this weekend, the verdict of the jury?
Yeah.
Okay, and all your jury members are anonymous, is that correct?
Yeah.
Kevin, is that your experience as well, that jury members want to be anonymous and don't want to publicize their names or have their names published?
That's right. That's the normal protocol that's necessary, especially in these cases when people's lives are at risk. Normally, it isn't even just their choice. It's the policy not to tell people who the jurors are, even who the judges and prosecutor are.
Okay. And is there any way that the public can understand what kind of professionals the judges are, for instance, or what kind of professionals or intellectuals are in the jury? Is that an issue or not at all?
Are you asking me or Casper?
I'm asking you.
Oh, yes. People often wonder who are the ones behind the 2 court cases we've adjudicated already. In both cases, there is 5 presiding magistrates. These are either lawyers or retired judges, and they have considerable legal knowledge, behind this. So there are professionals involved. Although the jury members themselves, I'm not sure about in Casper's case, but in his tribunal, but in the common law court of justice, these were ordinary men and women, citizens who simply volunteered.
Okay, so within common law, it's not of any importance what professional the jury has or members of the jury have, but it is important what professional background the judges have. Is that correct?
Well, yes, in common law, the jury is the source of the law. 12 men and women, or in the case of like a grand jury in America, they have 36. But the idea is that the people can decide for themselves what is just, what is the law. Judges traditionally in common law they don't have the power the judges normally have now in courts. Like, for example, judges can change the record, they can dismiss cases and all that. Traditionally, judges were simply legal advisors to the jury, and the ultimate decision lay in the hands of the jury, and so, that's the way we conduct our courts.
Okay, is it do you experience it as a handicap that common law is not known in the rest of Europe, where it's well known in the Anglo-Saxon speaking countries like Canada, United States, Great Britain, Commonwealth nations, etc. It's not well known in Holland or Belgium or other European countries. Do you consider that a handicap, or is that not a problem?
Well, it isn't a problem in the long run, because common law is really based on something that's inherent in every living man and woman. That's natural law, the law of creation. People call it sometimes the law of creation, God's law, the law of the land, and it simply says that people are born with inherent liberties, not given to you by government, but they are born in you, and you do not have the right to be considered a criminal if you've not harmed anyone. So if you do harm to no one, you've broken no law, and you can't be tried. So, I mean, these are certain kind of principles that are inherent in us as human beings, and it just developed in a certain way in England called the common law, but it's a much older idea, that goes back a long ways in Europe. It's really based on European tribal law, the Saxon tribal law, which of course was present in Holland as well.
The Saxon tribal law, so that's is that Germanic in general, or is that typically Saxon?
Saxon law, because in Saxon law, which of course was started in Germany, but really it influenced a lot of Western Europe, was the idea that there was no ruler ultimately over people. People governed themselves in their communities, and for example, the idea of a sheriff who was elected from the community to protect people and to allow everyone in the community to govern themselves. That's a tribal law against Roman law, which became canon law in the church. Roman law said there's one ruler They decide what your rights are. They can take away your rights. Basically, everybody is property of the rulers. That's a very different notion than the Saxon law. So really, the roots of common law are in that European Saxon law tradition.
So you stated that because of the verdict of the common law verdict of your organization in Brussels, the Pope, the former Pope, the Queen of England, or Queen Elizabeth, the Superior General of the Jesuits, the head of the Catholic Church in Ireland, they're all convicted, charged guilty. You say that we don't have any allegiance anymore. We don't have to obey this authority that is church and state, because they have been identified and proven to be a criminal organization. Is that so? I mean,
Yes.
meaning, for instance, we don't have to pay taxes anymore because the state is a criminal body. To
That's
that
right.
extent.
That's been a principle in international law for the last over 50 years, 50 to 60 years. And that a government that's engaged in crimes against humanity or illegal wars, such as in Afghanistan or Iraq, your citizens are obligated not to pay taxes, not to support those war crimes. But it happens on an even more basic level, because under common law or natural law, any statute that the government establishes, all the laws that they brainwash us to think we have to obey. In fact, it's a principle, an old principle in common law, that no statute has binding authority on anyone without their consent. If you don't give consent, the law has no effect. So you can opt out of any law. You can say no to any law if you disagree according to your conscience with that law, and it doesn't have any authority over you. So it's also from that precedent as well.
So that means that in fact, according to the common law cases until right now, church and state don't have any authority anymore, meaning that we are almost going back to some kind of lawfulness. But that's not the case, because on the bottom line, there's always this natural law, the common law that's always into action, because it's inherent to the people themselves.
That's right. And as a matter of fact, this last in Easter, Toos and others and Casper, we went to Maastricht, and I did a ceremony right there. It's one of the oldest Catholic churches in Europe, and it was really the third stage of an expulsion edict that came out of our court decision, and it said the Roman Catholic Church is now legally disestablished. It has no authority because it's a criminal organization, and under international law, bodies that traffic human beings, that launder criminal money and things like that, they don't have the right to their own property. People can go in and seize the premises, and they have no authority to command anyone to do anything. So in fact, we're saying to all the people in the Catholic Church, you can't put money in the collection plate. You can ignore the Pope and the orders of these priests, because they're part of a criminal conspiracy. And that also applies to officials of the Crown, the police and the judges and others in Canada, in England, in Australia, other Commonwealth countries. They've lost their authority, and that's why there's movements in those countries now to establish constitutional republics. So that's all part of this bigger movement.
You mentioned Anglo-Saxon countries in which they don't have any authority anymore, like the juridical system or the police. Does it also count for the Netherlands and for Belgium?
That's something I don't know well enough. You'd have to. I don't know Dutch history well enough to say that, but you'd have to. I remember talking to some people when I was there the last time about that issue exactly. I don't know. Maybe Casper can talk about it, because it has to do with, is the Dutch crown an actual lawful authority or not?
Okay, well, when we go into history, we can see that there was a coup d'etat when King William the First came from London into England right after Napoleon, and then the monarchy was established in the Netherlands, and 20 years later, Belgium became independent, also financed by London, and it became the first industrialized part of the continent in Europe. And they had their monarchy put there, which can also be considered as a coup d'état. So that's some history. Casper, do you know anything about that? Okay, and until we wait for Casper to be on the microphone, there is a question from the chat, people listening and participating on the chat. The question is, Kevin, are the trials that have that passed, you know, the two main trials, have they been recorded in some way, or is there a transcript of them available?
Yes, there is. They were recorded, video recorded, and court reported. So there's a complete legal transcript of all of the evidence, the trial, and the final verdict and sentence. Now, because this is part of an ongoing investigation, if we released all of that information, it would jeopardize the investigation. We are looking into the Ninth Circle sacrificial cult. People's lives are at stake. We have to protect witnesses and the investigators. And so the decision was made to wait on publishing that until we could have more security in place, like I mentioned before, this coming spring. There is a plan now to produce all of the evidence in the form of an actual documentary film, what goes along with all of the transcripts. And we hope to have that in place by the spring of 2015 at the latest. We're working on that now continually.
Okay, so that documentary can then be considered to be some kind of informal transcript or recording of the trials made for educational purposes.
Yes, there'll be the actual formal transcript and this documentary, because we want to have it known around the world as a precedent that other people can act on. But also, we have selectively published some testimonies. For example, Anne-Marie von Billenberg's statement, which she agreed to have released, and other evidence related to, for example, these Ninth Circle rituals and the killings of children in North America and elsewhere. So it is being selectively released, but like I say, the plan is to have it all out by the spring.
Yes, and this interview you had with Anne-Marie on YouTube for half an hour, it's on the ITCCS website available, isn't it?
That's right, not only her testimony, but also Tos's testimony from the spring of 2013 is also posted at itccs.org.
The 4 hours interview? The long interview?
With Tos, I think.
Oh, sorry. No, it's not 4 hours. I'm sorry. That was your original interview with Anne-Marie. That was 4 hours, but that was not your interview. But that was the first interview. No, I'm sorry. Okay, so the interview with Tos is also available on your website, itccs.org.
Yeah, I believe it's May 8th, 2013 is the date, if you check on that site.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to 10 o'clock. It's 9 minutes to 10. Tilasmi and or Casper, is there anything you can add to this, please? And especially, Tilasmi, I was thinking of the letter you wrote to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Justice, and the reply you got, in which they tell you that they don't consider the People's Tribunal to be a legal body, so they don't have to respond to your questions. Can you elaborate on that? I'm not hearing Casper, and I'm not hearing Tilasmi.
Yeah, you asked Tilasmi, so...
Okay, maybe you can answer this, Casper.
Yeah, okay, as you said, they don't give any juridical status to the tribunal. But the only thing the tribunal does is respecting the human rights and convicting according to in respect of the human rights. So if the minister says he doesn't give any juridical status to it, it actually says well, they don't respect human rights, and that was the whole case. We informed them that human rights were violated, and apparently they didn't see any need to make corrections. That's what we asked for in advance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So because of the People's Tribunal is appealing on human rights in general and making the Dutch state a suspect of how do you say this? Not respecting human rights in general. You wrote to them. You wanted answers from them,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then they said, we don't consider the People's Tribunal a legal institution, so we are not going to answer you. And that means that they admit that they don't respect human rights in general.
We already yes, stated that they don't respect human rights, because we apply to our human right of a fair trial and access to a real remedy of law, and that is what the state of the Netherlands has to give, is obligated to give us, because we have the right to that, and they claim the monopoly on this right of speaking justice. But we, in 9 cases with 9 judges, on 9 courts actually, because some courts were with more than 1 judge, we find out, we have the proof that they didn't respect the human rights, and that if you bring proof in, they don't apply on it.
Kevin, is that your experience as well? That if you correspond with legal bodies or official institutions, that you get the answer or the reply that ITCCS or one of your organizations or yourself is not considered a legal partner? Is that your experience as well?
They ignore us, and by ignoring us, they are confirming, by not challenging a statement made, it means that under the law you're agreeing with that statement. And the thing to remember about, it doesn't matter if a government acknowledges you or not. The very fact that they're suspected of being involved in a crime means they have to remove themselves from the involvement. So it doesn't really matter. You don't need their approval, because law emerges from the people the way government does. We are the sovereign men and women, are the source of law and government. We can establish our own courts. We can arrest people who might be a threat to our children. We can do all of that because authority comes from us. It doesn't come from the government. And people need to make a mental shift. And once you do that, you realize that really it doesn't matter what the government says in response. They are on trial. We have the evidence. We're putting them on trial.
And somehow it has great implications, as you started this program also, that Pope Benedict, now also Pope Francis, has said that he will step down. Adolfo Nicolas, the Superior General, has pronounced his abdication. Somehow it's working. King Carlos of Spain has stepped down. Queen Beatrix has stepped down. There is some relevance in the work you're doing, and they seem to acknowledge this common law trials somehow, don't they?
They do by their actions, and they're acting like guilty people. They know that they don't want to be arrested while in office, because then we would have access to all those records. We would be able to, prove everything we're saying. And so it isn't just by their action that they're indicating that. they are, by not responding to the charges, under the law, it means they're agreeing with them. They're not contesting the charges. You know, in England, in 1649, when they cut off the head of King Charles I, they did it legally. Parliament and the government there in the Republic in England lawfully executed the king because he would not respond to the charges. They said, you conducted a war of aggression against your own people. You're a war criminal. He did not contest it. They said, it's called in the law pro confesso. It means by not responding, you're confessing your guilt. And that's the situation in these governments now. They are not responding to the charges. They are admitting their guilt, as is the Pope and all these other people who've resigned.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then in general, there seems to be there's a double track in the operation. On the one hand, there's the listening to witnesses, collecting the evidence, making the lawsuits, preparing the jury and the judges and the whole system. And then on the other hand, there is the verdict and the arrest. Those are, as it seems, two tracks on which the first one, the collection of evidence, etc., seems to be the most extensive path, but compared to the other one, the easiest part. And then the verdicts and the consequences, the arrests and the sheriffs that come into action. That's the second part, but that seems to be the hardest path to walk, I'd say.
That's true, and it's because of that, it's what we're putting a lot of our energy and focus on right now, training sheriffs, common law sheriffs, to enforce the warrants, to make the arrests. And we did have some success in Montreal in having citizen sheriffs stop this Ninth Circle ritual that was to have occurred on August 15th. But this training takes a long time, not just in terms of preparing people to take this big step, but, you know, of actually enforcing and stopping these criminals. But it really requires a mental kind of shift, like I said, a rethinking by people about who and what they are, that they have the power to do this. And that's the biggest thing to overcome people's mental conditioning, that they don't have the authority or power to do these things.
And maybe publication of the work, of the verdicts, of the proof, of everything that's going on, might already be very effective in the world, so that people can take notice of it and become knowledgeable of things that are going on. But on the other hand, it seems that you, as you say, you want to have teeth behind it, so that consequences like verdicts and arrests can be performed. It's a very important part of ITCCS, of the whole system, isn't it?
That's right. And you know, the education, the actual publishing of the proof is very important because it forces people to open their eyes and to think again about you know, the nature of the church and the government and the system, you know, the corporate system they're living under. That's definitely a first step, but it's a bigger step to actually then take people to do action. And that's, again, that's why so many of us are involved in the training part of the community sheriffs now.
Well, wouldn't it make your work a lot easier if you, for the moment, or for a while, skip the second phase, the second route of sheriffs and arrests, etc., but just focus on the material, on the accusations, on the proof that's there, so that maybe the juries or members of the jury who participate in looking into this don't have this fear of being known to the officials. Maybe it can open up a little more. Is that some consideration you had?
Well, we find that both have to occur at the same time. You have to educate people, but then you have to give them a means to have an effect, to influence what happens. Because if people feel that they can't change things, then they won't do anything about it. They won't even think about it often. But if they could see that it has an effect, like when the Pope resigned, I began to get contacted by many people who said, well, I can see it's having an effect. It's not just a problem of evidence. We have lots of evidence. The proof is right there now in many cases. It's what to do about it. That's the big question.
Okay, and that's the big challenge, of course, for you as well, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, it's over a few minutes over 10 o'clock. Would you still like to continue a little, or is it the time to make an ending to this conversation?
Well, I appreciate the time we've had together. I hope we can do it again. I do have another interview to prepare for. But if there are any final questions you have with me, and then we can perhaps do it again soon.
Okay, that would be nice, of course. If you would be in the opportunity to continue this conversation on Finding Voices, we would be happy to join you, of course.
Yeah, whenever you'd like to arrange that, and yeah, we'll certainly do that. I'll stand ready to do that.
Okay, your time is very precious, of course.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the chance, to talk briefly to Casper and to look forward to helping them with the tribunal in any way we can. We intend to publish all of the work of the Dutch People's Tribunal all over the world through our network, which is now in 21 countries. So, I look forward to working with all of you more on that.
Kevin, could I interrupt and join?
Yeah, this is Tilasmi, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin. Nice to meet you. I won't make it too long. I've been helping Casper and Toos with their website and setting up, helping a bit with the PR. I'm also on the independent news here in Holland, and we're making programs also to make people conscious about the human rights and the violations by our government. Within the last few weeks, I was part in the setup of the court cases against the judges in Holland and the politicians, and with the hiding part, it came to me the question, because I've been actually warned that with the work that we are doing, I am endangering my own life. Could you, as a last, say something about the consequences of the work we're doing and how serious that has affected you and your life?
Well, we find that when these people start threatening us with death, it means they are desperate. They normally don't do that unless they're afraid of something coming out. And we find that's been happening to a lot of us in this movement now, death threats, again. And it means that we're getting very close to something here. We're getting close to the money. We're getting close to the financial interest behind this, like Drangheta, the criminal syndicate, that makes, Anne-Marie was saying, in Holland alone, every month they make over 30 million euros just from the drug trafficking, with which they bribe politicians and police, and as we've exposed that, that's when the death threats are happening. So it means we're on the right track, and they are being desperate. So I often say to people, that's the time to become even more public, because it shows that we have the upper hand. And, they haven't actually, I think it would be very stupid of them to actually start killing us, because that's confirming, what we're saying,
Okay, but so you feel quite safe and secure about what you're doing?
No, I don't feel safe necessarily, but, there are attacks that do still happen. What I find we have to do is stay public, and when it gets to the point of receiving threats, we need security in place for sure. We have to do things like, for example, not follow regular routines, perhaps stay in different places. I've had to do that, here in Canada especially. But, the more people we involve in this, the more we have to tell them, we have to be trained professionally. We need people who can help us in this way, as well as provide the evidence on all these things.
Okay, thank you. I might say that we also need the professional help, also for all the people who are listening. We do need professionals in security also, and people getting more involved in the People's Tribunal here in Holland. And well, I'm going to leave it like this, because I know you're out of time. Maybe Heine and Jeroen can take over, or maybe Casper wants to say something.
Well, I just want to thank you and say that, I've sent you my email, and if you would like to correspond about all of this directly, I'd like to speak to all of you about these details.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really, really would appreciate that. Really appreciate
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Kevin, very much thanks for you to be in our show today. I didn't say too much because my colleagues were much more prepared for this show, and I'm looking forward to the next time you are with us.
I do too. I look forward to all the great Dutch food. The beer and the cheese.
Yes, that's, I like it too. Okay, hey,
That will be spring then, probably, Kevin.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and take very good care of yourself.
you're invited when you're in Holland. Then you can come drink a beer and a piece of cake. Cheese, sorry.
I will do that with you. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Very much thanks, and I think the listeners were very glad to hear you here. So, till the next time.
Thank you all. I'll talk to you real
Okay.
soon.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
So, we're back in our show. En...
Nou, even muziekje doen, Jeroen.
Oh, dat kan helemaal goed. Dat zullen we doen. Even kijken, moet ik er wel even eentje bij pakken, een moment.
But I don't hear anything anymore.
Yes, I am here.
Okay. So we had this conversation in English. I think that the English speaking program has finished here with Kevin Annett as a guest, and I say that we will continue in Dutch for the Dutch listeners. Is that your opinion as well?
That's okay. It's good for me.
So then we can say thank you very much for listening to all the international listeners we had. And we hope you can join the program again when Kevin Annett will be our guest in the future. So thank you very much, and we will continue this program until 11 o'clock in Dutch.